The hallway was already loud, but when Officer Branning's voice cut through the morning chatter, it felt like the whole school exhaled in silence. Marcus didn't turn at first. He tightened his grip on the folder he carried, the one holding the speech he'd spent weeks perfecting. The paper edges trembled in his fingers as footsteps approached behind him, heavy and impatient. "Hey, you!" The officer's voice sharpened. "I'm talking to you, Troublemaker." A few students slowed. Some stopped outright. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed like they could sense the shift in air. Marcus finally looked back. "I didn't do anything," he said softly. His voice rarely rose. He'd learned to survive by staying quiet. Branning stepped closer, eyes narrowing as if searching for something to accuse him of. "You kids always say that. Wander in the halls. Stirring things. Don't play innocent." Marcus felt his throat tighten. His backpack hung from one shoulder, unzipped enough to expose a physics textbook he'd been carrying. His honor cords peeked out a folder. None of it mattered. "You have somewhere you're supposed to be?" Branning asked, leaning in as if expecting guilt to leak out of Marcus's skin. "Yes," Marcus whispered. "The auditorium. I'm presenting something." Branning scoffed. "Sure you are." Students exchanged looks. A teacher paused at the corner, watching but not stepping in. Marcus swallowed hard, feeling heat climb his face. He clutched the folder tighter. And then Officer Branning snatched it straight from his hands. The hallway froze. Marcus's heart dropped. Branning's eyes scanned the first page and stopped. Valedictorian address. The moment hung, sharp and deadly still. And then Branning's expression changed. Marcus didn't usually walk this hallway in the morning. He preferred the science wing, quieter, safer, lined with posters of equations instead of students who stared too long. But today he took the main corridor because the auditorium entrance was closer. It was rehearsal day. His valedictorian speech was tucked into a neat blue folder he held against his chest. He was focused on each step, on keeping his breathing calm, when the voice behind him cracked like a whip. "Hey, you, Troublemaker." Marcus kept walking, hoping it wasn't directed at him. The hallway noise thinned. Sneakers squeaked. Lockers slammed. But behind him, heavy boots thudded with purpose. "I said stop." Marcus stopped. He turned slowly, fingers tightening around the folder. Officer Branning stood a few feet away, hand on his belt, jaw clenched like he was already annoyed. "Where are you supposed to be?" Branning demanded. Marcus swallowed. "The auditorium. I have a rehearsal." Branning's eyes narrowed. "For what? Detention?" "No," Marcus said softly. "For graduation." Branning scoffed. "Graduation. Right." Students nearby paused, pretending not to watch but watching everything. Marcus could feel their stares prickling across his skin. Branning stepped closer. "Why is your bag halfway open?" "I was carrying books," Marcus said. "It slid." "Let me see." Marcus hesitated, and that was enough. Branning grabbed the backpack off his shoulder and unzipped it entirely. A physics book dropped to the floor with a dull thud. "Traveling light for a rehearsal, I see," Branning muttered. Marcus's chest tightened. "You're misunderstanding." "Quiet." Branning looked him up and down. "You've been seen wandering before, hanging around corners. People talk." Marcus blinked. "I go to AP study sessions. Those rooms are near the back. You think I don't know a pattern when I see one?" A few students exchanged glances. Marcus felt his ears heat. "I haven't done anything wrong," he said. Branning smirked. "Kids like you usually say that." The words hit harder than they should have. "Kids like you." Marcus heard it clearly, felt it settle over him like a weight he knew too well. Marcus clutched the blue folder closer, but Branning's eyes locked onto it. "What's that?" "My," Marcus began, but Branning snatched it from his hands before he could finish. "Hey!" Branning flipped it open. His eyes skimmed the page. His posture shifted almost imperceptibly. Then he read the title aloud. Valedictorian address. A rustle moved through the hallway. A few gasps. Someone whispered, "Wait." Marcus is valedictorian. Branning's jaw twitched. He closed the folder slowly, as if unsure how to process what he was holding. But the humiliation didn't fade. If anything, it clung harder to Marcus's skin. "So," Branning finally said, forcing a shrug, "even smart kids cause trouble." Marcus felt something inside him tremble. Anger or fear, he wasn't sure. "Can I have my speech back?" Branning held it a moment longer before handing it over. "Principal wants to see you." Marcus's stomach dropped. "Why?" "We'll discuss it there," Branning said, gesturing for him to walk. Marcus stared at the ground as he moved. Students parted like he carried something contagious. No one stepped in. Not one teacher spoke. Branning walked behind him, boots echoing, voice low. "Next time you think about wandering around, think again." Marcus clenched his jaw, but stayed silent. When they entered the principal's office, Principal Dalton looked up from his desk, startled. "Marcus? What on earth?" Branning cut in, found him skipping, acting suspicious. Dalton frowned. "Is that true?" Marcus finally met someone's eyes. "I was going to rehearsal." Dalton blinked. "Rehearsal? For what?" Marcus held up the folder. Dalton's face drained. "Branning, he's valedictorian." The room went silent. Branning shifted, looking suddenly unsure. Dalton rubbed his temples, exhaling heavily. "Officer Branning, could you give us a moment?" Branning hesitated before stepping out, closing the door with a sharp click. Dalton leaned forward. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. This shouldn't have happened. This is a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding." Marcus felt the words settle like ashes. Dalton added, "Let me handle it. You should get to rehearsal." But the apology felt thin, fragile, like something meant to make the moment pass rather than to fix what was broken. Marcus nodded anyway. Quietly, automatically, he left the office with the folder pressed tightly to his chest, heart still pounding, Branning's eyes still burning in his memory. He walked toward the auditorium, but the fear walked with him. Principal Dalton waited a full 3 seconds after Officer Branning closed the door before letting out a long, heavy breath. Marcus stood there, clutching the blue folder like a shield. "Sit, Marcus," Dalton said gently. Marcus sat, but kept his back straight. He didn't trust the calm. Not after the walk through the hallway. Not after being paraded like a suspect. Dalton rubbed his forehead. This shouldn't have happened. Not today of all days. Marcus stared at him. It shouldn't happen on any day. Dalton froze. His eyes flickered, as if he wasn't prepared for Marcus to speak so plainly. "Yes, of course. You're right." But his voice wavered just enough to show he wasn't ready to confront what right meant. A knock. The door opened again. Branning stepped halfway in. "Principal Dalton, do you still need me?" Dalton stiffened. "No. Thank you, officer. I'll handle things from here." Branning's eyes slid toward Marcus. "Just making sure protocol is followed." Marcus felt the familiar spark of humiliation rising again. Dalton noticed, quickly added, "I'll call you if necessary." Only then did Branning withdraw. The door shut. Silence stretched. Dalton cleared his throat. "Marcus, I need you to understand something. Officer Branning is under a lot of pressure. The school board." Marcus blinked. "I was walking to rehearsal." "I know." "He called me a troublemaker." Dalton swallowed. "Sometimes officers use language they shouldn't, but they're trained to observe behavior, and you were in the main hall." "I was on my way to the auditorium." Dalton hesitated. "Yes, I know." Marcus felt heat crawl up his neck. "Then why are you explaining his behavior instead of acknowledging mine?" Dalton didn't answer immediately. His fingers tapped lightly on the desk, a rhythm of discomfort Marcus had seen teachers use many times when discussing race without naming it. Finally, Dalton sighed. "Look, Branning has filed an incident report." Marcus's heart dropped. "For what?" "It just says you were uncooperative." "Nothing serious," Dalton said quickly. "I'll make sure it doesn't go anywhere." Marcus stared at him, stunned. "I answered every question he asked." Dalton nodded but avoided eye contact. I'm not accusing you. I'm just telling you what he wrote. Marcus felt something inside him twist. The words uncooperative carried their own history, their own weight, and Dalton knew it. Yet he repeated it anyway, as if reading off a script handed to him by fear. You're valedictorian, Dalton said, tone shifting suddenly into something performative, almost congratulatory. Your achievements speak for themselves. You have a bright future. Let's not let this derail. Derail what? Marcus asked quietly. Me? Or the school's reputation? Dalton froze again. Marcus softened his tone. I just want to give my speech. That's all. Dalton finally met his eyes. And you will, I promise. Promises, Marcus thought, often meant nothing. Dalton stood, signaling the meeting was over. You're free to go. And Marcus, try to focus on your big day tomorrow. Marcus nodded, though he felt the words slide off him like cold water. As he turned to leave, Dalton added, I'll speak with Officer Branning later. We'll make sure boundaries are respected. Marcus paused. Respect would have been stopping him in the hallway. Dalton had no response. Marcus left the office quietly. Branning was standing near the security desk, talking to a cafeteria supervisor. He looked up when Marcus walked by, eyes narrowing just enough to send a message. I still have authority. Marcus kept moving. The hallway felt longer than before. More eyes, more whispers, more tension under the fluorescent lights. Every step toward the auditorium tightened his chest. When he reached the stage doors, he stopped and exhaled shakily. His hands were trembling. He pressed them against his sides until they steadied. He wouldn't let anyone see him fall apart. That afternoon, Marcus walked home instead of taking the bus. He needed the air. The sound of traffic, normal, indifferent, felt grounding. But the memory of Branning's voice kept playing in looping echoes. Hey, you, troublemaker. The humiliation rose again, hot and sharp. At a crosswalk, a woman in a minivan stared at him longer than necessary before locking her car doors. Marcus looked away. The world had a way of repeating itself, even when you earned top grades and stayed out of trouble. Bias didn't care about achievements. It cared about appearances. At home, Marcus hovered at the doorway. He could hear his mother humming in the kitchen, cooking something warm and familiar. She always cooked more on days she was excited or proud. He didn't step inside yet. He wasn't ready to ruin her mood. He wasn't ready to see her smile dim. He wasn't ready to explain why he felt smaller, somehow. So he sat on the porch, staring at the yard, trying to find words that didn't shake. The sun lowered slowly. Lawnmowers buzzed in the distance. A neighbor's dog barked. Normal things. Things that didn't accuse him, didn't search him, didn't doubt him. He opened the blue folder. His speech stared back at him, hopeful, polished, filled with lines about gratitude and growth. He felt suddenly disconnected from the words. He closed it. He wasn't sure if he still believed what he wrote. When his mother finally noticed him outside, she stepped onto the porch. Marcus? You okay, baby? He nodded quickly. Too quickly. She saw through it. She always did. You want to talk? Marcus forced a smile. Later. I just need a minute. She nodded, brushing her hand against his shoulder gently before walking back inside. The moment she left, Marcus felt his chest tighten again. He wasn't ready to tell her, but he also knew he couldn't keep it inside forever. Not this time. He looked at the blue folder resting on his lap. Tomorrow, he thought, might be the hardest day of his life, and maybe the most important. Marcus sat at the dinner table, pushing food around his plate without taking a bite. His mother watched from across the kitchen, turning off the stove slowly, eyes narrowing the way they did when she sensed something wasn't right. You barely touched your meal, she said softly. I'm not that hungry, Marcus murmured. That's not like you, especially not before a big day. He kept his eyes down, just tired. She walked over and took the seat across from him, folding her hands on the table. Marcus, look at me. He hesitated, then lifted his eyes. What happened at school? His chest tightened instantly. Nothing. Marcus, Her voice was calm but firm, the voice that meant she wasn't letting go. She saw too much. Always had. Marcus exhaled slowly. It's not a big deal. If it weren't a big deal, you'd have told me by now. Silence settled thickly between them. Finally, Marcus leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. Officer Branning stopped me in the hallway. Her jaw clenched. Stop you how? He called me a troublemaker. Searched my bag. Took my speech folder. Marcus kept his voice steady, but the tremor still slipped through. He dragged me to the principal's office. Her breath left her in a sharp, pained sound. What? Why? He said I was wandering. Suspicious. Marcus shook his head. I was on my way to rehearsal. His mother closed her eyes briefly. Did he touch you? No. Just grabbed my stuff. And Marcus swallowed. He said kids like you. Her eyes opened sharply. He said that. Marcus nodded. She pressed a hand over her mouth, collected herself, then lowered it slowly. Baby, I'm so sorry. It's fine, Marcus said quickly. No, it's not. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with anger she was swallowing carefully. You're a good kid. You work hard. You stay out of trouble. You do everything right. And still, she cut herself off, shaking her head. Marcus stared at the table. I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to make you worry. Marcus, listen to me. She leaned forward, voice lower. I worry every time you step outside. Not because of who you are, but because of how the world sees you before it even hears your voice. Marcus looked up again. Her eyes were wet, but fierce. You shouldn't have to shrink yourself to feel safe. He swallowed hard. It just made me feel small. She reached across the table and took his hand. Feeling small doesn't mean you are small. They tried to cage your dignity today, but they didn't take it. Marcus blinked quickly, trying to keep his emotions from spilling. She squeezed his hand. Did the principal do anything? No. He apologized, but it was weak. Marcus shrugged. He said it was a misunderstanding. Like that makes it less humiliating. She sighed deeply. That's how it goes. People acknowledge harm only if they can distance themselves from it. Marcus held her gaze. Should I still give my speech? Her face softened immediately. Marcus, that speech is your truth. Your work. Your future. Don't let anyone take that from you. He looked away. I was thinking about changing it. Changing it how? Adding something. About bias. About what happened. She studied him carefully. Do you want to say it? Or do you feel obligated to say it? He thought for a long moment. I want to, but I'm scared. That means you're human, she whispered. Courage doesn't erase fear. It just walks with it. Marcus breathed slowly. Her words sank into him like warmth spreading through cold limbs. She stood and moved to the living room. Come here. He followed hesitantly. She picked up his folder from the coffee table and handed it to him. Read me the part you think you might change. Marcus opened it, flipping to the last page where he'd scribbled a few lines before dinner. His own handwriting looked shaky. He read aloud. Sometimes the world sees you as a problem before it sees you as a person. Sometimes the labels they slap on you stick to your skin, even when you've done nothing wrong. But we are not what they call us. We are what we choose to become. His mother inhaled slowly, eyes glistening. Marcus, that's powerful. He looked at her, vulnerable. Is it too much? It's honest, she said. Honesty isn't too much. Marcus let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. She stepped closer, resting a hand on his back. I'll be there tomorrow. Early. In the front row. He nodded. And whatever you decide to say, I'll support it. Marcus's throat tightened. Thanks, Mom. That night, after she went to bed, Marcus sat alone in the dim living room. Only the lamp beside the couch lit the space. He stood at the center, holding the folder, imagining the auditorium, the crowd, the moment. He read the speech softly, letting the words settle. Then he read the new lines again. For the first time since the hallway incident, Marcus felt something inside him shift, not anger, not fear, but clarity. Tomorrow wouldn't just be about achievement. It would be about truth. He practiced until his voice grew hoarse, standing in the quiet room, letting courage take shape in the dark. Marcus arrived early the next morning, hoping to blend into the quiet before the school fully came alive. But whispers traveled faster than footsteps. Before he even made it to his locker, he felt the shift, eyes lingering too long, conversations cutting off the moment he passed, a strange static in the air. A group of juniors stood by the bulletin board. One of them nudged another and tilted his chin toward Marcus. The second boy mouthed something, eyebrows raised. Marcus didn't need to hear the words to know they were about him. He kept walking. At the water fountain, a girl from his English class approached hesitantly. "Hey, Marcus." "Yeah," he asked quietly. She glanced around as if ensuring no one saw her. I saw what happened yesterday. I'm really sorry. I should have said something." "You don't have to apologize," Marcus replied. "I do," she said softly. "It wasn't right." Marcus offered a small nod. "Thank you." She walked away quickly, almost guiltily. Moments later, another student stepped up, this time a tall boy from the basketball team. "Yo, man, people are saying you got caught stealing or something." Marcus stared at him. "What?" "That's what I heard. But I figure it wasn't true." "It's not," Marcus said firmly. "At all." "Yeah, I know," the boy said, scratching his head. "But you know how it is. People talk." Marcus swallowed hard. "Did anyone correct them?" The boy shrugged helplessly. Didn't know what to say. Marcus nodded slowly. "It's fine." But it wasn't. He kept walking, the weight of each rumor settling over him like dust that wouldn't brush off. Every time he passed a cluster of whispering students, he wondered which version of the story they'd heard, or which version they'd silently agreed with. In the history wing, Mrs. Kellen was stapling worksheets to a bulletin board. When Marcus passed, she paused. "Marcus," she murmured, stepping closer. "Are you all right?" He shrugged. "I'm okay." She lowered her voice. "I didn't see everything yesterday, but I saw enough. I should have stepped in." He looked at her, really looked. The regret in her eyes was real, but restrained by fear of crossing some line she wasn't allowed to cross. "You saw me being stopped?" Marcus asked. She nodded slowly. "I saw Officer Brandon confront you. I wasn't sure if it was my place to intervene." Marcus exhaled. "It was, but I understand why you didn't." The words weren't accusatory, but they cut anyway. Mrs. Kellen's expression tightened, ashamed. "If you need anything," she whispered, "if you need someone to talk to, or if you want me to report it, I can." Marcus shook his head. "I'll handle it." She opened her mouth to say something else, but he was already walking toward the auditorium. Rumors deepened as the morning progressed. By lunch, Marcus heard 3 different versions of the story. He tried to sneak into the teacher's lounge. "No," he was yelling at Branning. "Nah, he got caught cheating on something." Each one chipped at him. How easy it was to turn a single lie into a dozen. How easy it was for silence to let it spread. Marcus sat alone, lunch tray untouched. He stared at the table, hands clasped tightly. A freshman approached timidly. I heard you got, arrested?" Marcus looked up sharply. "No, I didn't." "Oh." The boy's face brightened. Cool. The disconnect stung like a slap. Marcus stood abruptly and left the cafeteria. The auditorium doors were open. Students were setting up chairs for rehearsal, murmuring softly as they worked. The stage lights were dim, casting long shadows across the room. Marcus stepped inside, letting the quiet swallow him. He walked to the center of the stage. The emptiness around him felt heavy, but cleaner than the hallways filled with rumor and fear. He took a breath. Here, the truth echoed differently. The theater teacher, Ms. Rayner, noticed him and offered a small, encouraging smile. "Morning, Marcus. Ready for the big day?" Marcus nodded. "Trying to be." She approached, lowering her voice. "I heard some of the nonsense floating around. Just ignore it. People cling to rumors because they're afraid to confront reality." Marcus glanced at her. "Reality? That you're the top student here. that you earned that stage, and some people can't handle that. He appreciated the sentiment, even if it didn't erase the sting. She moved away to check the microphones. Marcus remained on the stage, staring at the empty seats. He pictured them filled, parents, students, teachers, administrators, and Branning standing in the corner with crossed arms and narrowed eyes. He felt his heartbeat quicken. Was he really going to say those lines? Was he going to stand in front of everyone and challenge the silence that let yesterday happen? The doors creaked open behind him. Marcus turned. Officer Branning walked in. He wasn't supposed to be here yet. His boots clicked against the polished floor, echoing sharply. Branning scanned the room, eyes locking on Marcus. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Branning smirked slightly. "You practicing?" he asked, tone cool. Marcus swallowed. "Yeah." "Good. Wouldn't want you messing up halfway through." Marcus clenched his jaw. "I'll be fine." Branning crossed his arms. "Let's hope so. Big day." The unspoken meaning hung in the air. Don't make trouble. Ms. Rayner approached then, stepping between them unintentionally. "Officer Branning, didn't expect you this early. Just checking in," he said. He glanced at Marcus again before leaving. When the doors closed, Marcus exhaled shakily. Every rumor, every whisper, every silence of morning funneled into that single moment. This wasn't just about a speech anymore. It was about being seen, about reclaiming the narrative twisting around him. He walked back to center stage, spine straighter this time. Whatever happened next, he wouldn't hide from it. Officer Branning stood inside the small security office near the gym, arms crossed as he stared at the monitors. Students drifted through hallways on the grainy screens, their movements small and harmless. But Branning watched them with the intensity of someone expecting trouble to rise from thin air. Officer Harlan, the only other security officer on staff that morning, walked in holding a coffee. "You've been in here since 7, Harlan said casually. "You planning on taking a break?" Branning didn't look away from the monitors. "Too much nonsense happening lately. Can't afford to let my guard down." Harlan raised an eyebrow. "It's graduation week." "Nonsense. Is kids decorating caps and arguing about playlists." Branning finally glanced at him. "Yeah, well, you'd be surprised what they try to pull." Harlan took a slow sip from his cup. "By they, you mean students or a specific kind of student?" Branning stiffened. "Don't start with that." "Start with what?" Harlan asked. "I'm just making sure we're talking about kids, not stereotypes." Branning scoffed. "You weren't in the halls yesterday. You didn't see what I saw." "I heard," Harlan said carefully. "I also heard the kid you stopped is valedictorian." Branning shrugged. "Smart doesn't mean innocent." Harlan blinked. "He was walking. To rehearsal. You think I stopped him just because he was walking?" Branning snapped. "I know patterns, Harlan. I've seen enough to know when someone's trying to duck around supervision. Or when you're looking for trouble," Harlan said quietly. Branning's jaw tightened. "Look, these kids, they act up. They hide things. They push boundaries. You let one slip, and suddenly the whole school's a mess." Harlan studied him, seeing more than Branning intended to reveal. "So that's what yesterday was? Preventative?" "Exactly," Branning said, nodding firmly. "I kept the school safe. That's my job." Harlan hesitated, then shrugged lightly. "Your job is also to recognize when you misread a situation." Branning shot him a glare. "I didn't misread anything." Harlan sighed. "Kids make mistakes, sure. But assumptions can be mistakes too." Branning looked away, jaw tight. "I don't need a lecture." "I'm not lecturing," Harlan said. "I'm just saying you might need to think about how you approach that boy." Branning didn't respond. He turned back to the monitors, scrolling through the feeds, pretending the conversation was over. Outside the security office, Marcus had stopped in the hallway with his hand hovering near the doorknob. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop. He'd simply been passing by. But when he heard his name, he froze. "That kid you stopped, valedictorian, didn't misread anything." Marcus felt his heart pound. He wasn't imagining it. Branning didn't feel regret, didn't question himself. He was convinced that Marcus fit some category he'd already built in his head. Marcus stepped back, trying not to make a sound. He didn't want them to know he'd heard. He didn't want Branning confronting him again. Not like this. Not when he could feel anger coursing through his veins. Harlan's voice drifted through the door again. "You know the staff is talking, right? Parents too." Words getting around. Branning muttered, "Let them talk. I did my job." Marcus swallowed tightly. A strange wave of clarity washed over him, painful and empowering at the same time. For the first time, he heard the full truth behind the actions. Branning didn't see him as a person. He saw him as a threat, a category, a box to check, a pattern to control. Logic didn't matter. Achievements didn't matter. Excellence didn't matter. Only Branning's assumptions mattered. Marcus felt the sting, but also a new kind of resolve. His speech wasn't just for him anymore. He stepped back further from the door, trying to quiet the trembling in his hands. Just then, the handle clicked. Marcus froze as Branning stepped out of the office. Their eyes met. Branning's expression hardened instantly. "Something you need?" Marcus swallowed. "No, just heading to rehearsal." Branning stepped closer. "You seem to be everywhere I turn." "I'm walking to the auditorium," Marcus said evenly, refusing to drop his gaze. Branning narrowed his eyes, searching Marcus's face as if looking for defiance. "Stay out of trouble today." Marcus almost laughed, not out of humor, but disbelief. "I'm not the one causing trouble." Branning's jaw twitched. "Watch your tone." Marcus inhaled slowly. "I am." They stood in a taut moment of silence before Branning finally brushed past him, muttering something under his breath. Marcus turned away quickly, pulse racing, but something inside him had shifted. The fear wasn't gone, not even close, but there was something new beneath it, a foundation, a steadiness, a choice. He knew what part of the speech he would keep. He knew which lines would stay. He knew exactly why he needed to say them now. As he walked toward the auditorium, he repeated the words under his breath. "We are not what they call us. We are what we choose to become." And for the first time, Marcus felt the truth of them settle deep in his bones. By the time he reached the stage door, Marcus wasn't shaking anymore. He was ready, not unafraid, but ready. What came next wasn't just ceremony. It was confrontation. Quiet, poised, public, and Branning had given him all the clarity he needed. The auditorium hummed with a low energy that felt restless rather than excited. Folding chairs clattered as volunteers arranged them in neat rows. Stage lights buzzed overhead, flickering occasionally in the dim room. Graduation banners hung lopsidedly from the rafters, waiting for someone to straighten them. Marcus stepped inside quietly, hoping to blend in, but Ms. Rayner immediately waved him over. "Morning, Marcus." Her voice held a careful brightness. "We're doing a full run-through. You ready?" "As ready as I can be," Marcus said with a small shrug. She smiled softly, sensing more beneath the surface but not pushing. "Go ahead and take your place on stage." Microphone check in 5. Marcus nodded and walked up the steps. The stage felt bigger today. Wide, exposed, unforgiving. Dust floated to beams of light, catching in the air like suspended particles of tension. He stood at the podium, gripping its sides to steady himself. Behind him, the auditorium door clicked open. Heavy footsteps echoed through the room. Marcus didn't need to turn to know who it was. Officer Branning entered the auditorium with deliberate slowness, surveying the room as if expecting misconduct to be hiding behind the curtains. He wasn't scheduled to patrol the rehearsal. Marcus knew that. Everyone knew that. But there he was anyway, arms crossed, face unreadable. Ms. Rayner called from across the room. "Officer Branning, we're just rehearsing. You can relax." Branning gave a curt nod, but he didn't leave. Instead, he took a seat in the aisle, not too close, not too far, a position from which he could watch Marcus clearly. Marcus's throat tightened. Ms. Rayner clapped her hands. "Okay, Marcus, let's start with volume. Whenever you're ready." Marcus leaned toward the microphone. Testing 1, 2. His voice cracked slightly. He cleared his throat and tried again. Testing 1, 2. Branning interrupted from his seat. You need to project. It's too soft. Ms. Rayner shot him a sharp look. I'm handling the rehearsal, thank you. Branning shrugged but remained silent. Marcus tried again, but his voice shook, the words catching on nerves he couldn't hide. His palms felt damp against the wood of the podium. Ms. Rayner moved closer. You're doing fine. Try a deep breath. He inhaled, exhaled. His heartbeat steadied, only slightly. All right, she said. Start from the beginning of your speech. Marcus opened his folder. The neatly typed pages blurred for a moment before his eyes focused. He began, Good morning, faculty, families, and fellow graduates. His voice wavered on graduates, cracking faintly. A few students seated for rehearsal exchanged glances. Branning leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, expression unreadable but present enough to tighten Marcus's chest. Ms. Rayner raised a hand. Pause there. Marcus, let's reset. Marcus nodded, swallowing hard. He stepped back from the microphone, trying to unclench his jaw. Then the auditorium door opened again. This time his mother stepped inside. She scanned the room until her eyes landed on Marcus, then on Branning. She walked straight down the aisle with calm, deliberate steps, each one quiet but firm. Marcus felt a sudden wave of relief, and dread, and something in between. Marcus, she said softly when she reached the stage. I came early so I could hear you practice. He gave a small nod, trying not to show how much he needed the sight of her right now. She turned to Ms. Rayner. May I watch? Of course, Ms. Rayner said warmly. But before Marcus could begin again, Branning stood and approached, clearing his throat. Ma'am, this is a school rehearsal. Only staff and students are supposed to. Marcus's mother looked at him calmly. I'm a parent, and it's my son's rehearsal. Branning stiffened. It's not open to the public. Ms. Rayner stepped in quickly. Parents are allowed to observe. It's fine. Branning's jaw tightened. Just maintaining protocol. Marcus's mother faced him fully, her voice level but steel-edged. Protocol doesn't require you to intimidate my son. A murmur rippled through the students. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. Branning blinked. I'm not intimidating anyone. You're interrupting rehearsal, she said. You're inserting yourself where you're not needed, and you were already out of line yesterday. Branning stiffened, glancing quickly at Marcus, as if expecting him to deny it. Marcus said nothing. His mother continued. My son is here to practice his speech, not to be policed at every step. Branning's lips pressed into a thin line. I'm just doing my job. She didn't flinch. Then perhaps you should review what your job actually is. The room went silent. Ms. Rayner cleared her throat. Let's refocus. Marcus, whenever you're ready. Branning stepped back, visibly irritated but unable to argue. He moved toward the exit but didn't leave. He stood by the door instead, pretending to check his radio, but really watching. Marcus looked down at his speech, pulse racing. His mother sat in the front row, giving him a small, encouraging nod, the kind that softened the tremor in his hands. He began again. Good morning, faculty, families, and fellow graduates. This time, his voice held. He read through the next paragraphs. Each sentence was steadier, each breath deeper. But when he reached the lines he'd added the night before, his throat tightened. Sometimes the world sees you as a problem before it sees you as a person. His voice faltered there, but not from fear, from truth. He glanced at his mother. Her eyes glistened with pride. He pushed forward. But we are not what they call us. We are what we choose to become. Silence followed. Ms. Rayner exhaled softly. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. A few students clapped quietly. Marcus felt the weight of Branning's stare from the back of the room. Tense, assessing, threatened. For the first time, Marcus didn't shrink beneath it. His mother stood and walked toward the stage. You're ready, she whispered to him. Tomorrow will be hard, but you're ready. Marcus nodded, feeling a calm settle inside him, fragile but real. Tomorrow wasn't just graduation. It was a reckoning, and he wasn't walking into it alone. The graduation ceremony had always seemed distant, a milestone carved far out on the horizon. Yet here Marcus stood, dressed in his navy gown, adjusting the gold Valedictorian stole resting on his shoulders. Backstage in the auditorium, the air buzzed with nervous energy. Seniors whispered last-minute jokes, adjusted caps, fought back tears. But Marcus felt a different kind of weight pressing on him. He kept replaying his lines in his head. We are not what they call us. We are what we choose to become. He wasn't sure if he was repeating them for courage or survival. Through a slit in the curtain, he spotted the auditorium filling quickly. Parents shuffled to their seats, holding programs and cameras. Teachers took their places in the front rows. Students found their assigned chairs. The hum of conversation blended with a squeal of folding seats and the occasional feedback from a microphone. Then Marcus saw him. Officer Branning stood near the right side of the stage, in full uniform, arms crossed over his chest. He wasn't stationed near the doors like usual. He had positioned himself where he'd have a clear view of the podium. His eyes scanned the crowd, but they returned to the stage again and again. Marcus's heart clenched. Ms. Rayner approached him from behind. "You okay?" she asked softly. He nodded, though his voice came out fragile. "Just a lot." She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Remember, meaningful words always feel heavy before they're spoken." He exhaled slowly. "Yeah." His mother sat in the front row, exactly where she promised she'd be. She caught his eye and smiled, not the proud, glowing smile she wore at honor ceremonies, but something deeper, a steadying smile, the kind that said, "Whatever happens, I'm here." The principal moved to the podium. "Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 68th Annual Riverside High School Graduation Ceremony." Applause rose through the auditorium. Marcus felt sweat forming at the back of his neck. The ceremony continued. Honor cords recognized. The choir singing their final song, scholarships announced. Marcus barely heard any of it. His name sat in the program next to Valedictorian address. His moment was approaching. From the stage wing, he watched the seniors walk across the stage one by one. He clapped mechanically. His focus kept slipping to Branning's rigid posture. Finally, Principal Dalton returned to the microphone. "And now," he said with practiced enthusiasm, "it is my honor to welcome our valedictorian, Marcus Hill, to deliver his address." Thunderous applause filled the auditorium. Students cheered. Parents whistled. The sound washed over him, but he felt strangely detached from it. Marcus stepped forward, heartbeat thudding through his entire body. The stage lights were brighter than he remembered. They washed the room in a hazy glow, making it hard to see faces clearly. But he saw Branning, stiff, unsmiling, watching. He reached the podium and adjusted the microphone. Silence settled. Marcus inhaled and began. "Good afternoon, faculty, teachers, families, and my fellow graduates." His voice was steady. "We stand here today after years of work, late nights, early mornings, failures that taught us, and successes that shaped us." He saw nodding heads, smiles, a few teary parents. Marcus continued. "We've been told to stay focused, to keep our heads up, to rise above challenges. And we did." A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. "And yet," Marcus said quietly, "sometimes the challenges we face aren't academic." The room stilled slightly. Branning shifted. Marcus continued, voice stronger. "Sometimes the world sees us as a problem before it sees us as a person." Someone sucked in a breath. He could feel the crowd tightening, not in fear, but attention. He allowed a short silence, letting the words settle. "In this school," he said, "we've learned equations, paragraphs, historical dates, and scientific theories. But we've also learned something unspoken. That perception can shape reality, even when it's wrong." A teacher in the front row lowered her gaze, aware. Marcus breathed in, carefully. "We are not defined by the labels people place on us. Not by assumptions. Not by suspicions. Not by the quiet whispers or loud judgments." He saw Branning's jaw tighten. "We are defined by the choices we make, the integrity we hold, the work we put in, and the courage it takes to keep going even when someone tries to shrink us." His mother wiped a tear. Marcus pushed forward, each sentence growing louder. "We are not what they call us. We are what we choose to become." A ripple moved through the audience, a mixture of awe and tension. "Today," Marcus said, I choose to be someone who stands. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's risky, even when silence would be easier. Principal Dalton shifted nervously behind him. Marcus closed his folder gently. And I hope each of us learns to choose the same. He stepped back from the microphone. Silence filled the room. One agonizing beat. Two. Then, the auditorium erupted in applause. Loud, rising, spreading like a wave. Some students stood. Parents clapped with both hands. Some wiping tears. Others cheering loudly. The sound washed over him, no longer distant. Marcus's chest filled with something warm and powerful. Not triumph, but release. His mother rose to her feet, cheering with trembling hands. But Branning did not clap. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He simply stared, face unreadable but shaken. Marcus held his gaze for a moment, not challenging, not afraid, simply present. Then he stepped away from the podium and returned to his seat. Students patted his back, whispered that was amazing, powerful. Damn, man. Marcus took it all in quietly. When the principal returned to the mic, his voice wobbled. Thank you, Marcus, for that, thought-provoking speech. The ceremony resumed, but the atmosphere had changed. A current ran through the crowd, a shared electricity. People leaned toward one another, whispering about what they'd heard. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked unsettled. Branning remained still. Marcus exhaled, slowly, deeply. No matter what came next, he had told the truth, and the whole room had heard it. The ceremony ended in a whirl of caps thrown into the air, camera flashes, and the chaotic joy of graduates hugging each other tightly. But beneath the celebration, something else stirred. A tension, a buzz, a current of electricity that didn't fade when the music stopped. Marcus walked down the steps toward the crowd of families, diploma in hand. His mother rushed forward and wrapped him in a tight embrace. You were brilliant, she whispered into his shoulder. So brave. He hugged her back, closed his eyes for a moment. I was terrified. Courage usually is, she said, kissing his cheek. Around them, students congratulated one another, but Marcus noticed something shifting. People weren't just celebrating. They were looking at him, staring, whispering, pointing, but not with mockery, with intensity. A parent approached, a tall man in a suit. Excuse me, are you Marcus Ill? Marcus nodded warily. I just wanted to say, your speech was powerful. My daughter's in the sophomore class. She said something happened to you yesterday. I'm so sorry. Marcus blinked. Thank you. The man nodded and walked away. Almost immediately, another parent stepped forward. Then another, and another. Some offered condolences. Some asked what exactly happened. Others simply said, we believe you, or thank you for speaking up. Marcus answered what he could, but the questions came too fast. His mother eventually slipped an arm around him, guiding him to a quieter corner. Then he saw it, a small circle of students filming themselves talking. They weren't posing for graduation photos. They were discussing him. A girl lifted her phone. We're posting about it, she said. People should know. Marcus felt his stomach flip. Know what? That Officer Branning's targeting students. You're not the first. His breath caught. What do you mean? The girl glanced around before leaning closer. My brother graduated last year. Branning stopped him twice for loitering when he was literally waiting for a ride. And he always targets the same students. Mostly black boys. Some Latino kids. Never the others. Marcus's pulse hammered. Why didn't anyone report it? They tried, she said, but the school shut it down. My mom complained once. They said it was a miscommunication. Marcus's mother stiffened. Of course they did. The girl nodded sympathetically. But your speech, it changed something. People are finally listening. Before Marcus could respond, a group of teachers approached. Not loudly, cautiously, quietly, as if afraid of being overheard. Mrs. Kellen was in front. She spoke softly. Marcus, we need to talk. His mother tensed beside him, protective. Mrs. Kellen held up her hands gently. Nothing bad. Some of us want to support you. That's all. One of the math teachers added, "We've seen things too." We didn't speak because we worried about repercussions. Marcus's mother's eyes narrowed. Repercussions for speaking the truth? They didn't answer, but their silence said enough. Meanwhile, on the far side of the room, Branning stood rigid near the wall. He was surrounded by a small group of concerned parents, faces tight with agitation. Why was he stopped at all? A parent demanded. "My son said this isn't the first time," another added. Branning held up his hands defensively. "Look, I followed protocol. I saw suspicious behavior." A parent cut him off. "Suspicious?" He was carrying a folder. Branning's voice sharpened. "You weren't there. You don't know the context." A mother stepped forward, voice shaking with anger. "My nephew told me you called Marcus a troublemaker. Is that true?" Branning's jaw flexed. "I don't recall that." Another parent scoffed. "Convenient." Branning turned red. "I acted based on what I observed. I wasn't profiling anyone." But his words sounded thinner than yesterday, less confident, less rehearsed. Around him, whispers rippled. Principal Dalton approached hurriedly, trying to smooth over the tension. "Everyone, let's calm down. This is a day of celebration." A parent snapped. "Then start by answering why your officer is targeting students based on assumptions." Dalton visibly swallowed. "We're looking into the matter." "Looking into it now because it's public." Another parent shot back. "Not because it happened." Dalton opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Marcus watched the scene unfold from across the room. For the first time, Branning looked uneasy, shaken, cornered, exposed. The next morning, the school community group chat exploded with screenshots. Videos from yesterday's confrontation circulated. Posts from former students describing similar experiences resurfaced. Parents shared their concerns. Teachers added their silent agreement with subtle reactions and emojis. By noon, local media had reached out to several families. Enough that Principal Dalton sent a school-wide email urging patience and discretion during the sensitive time. Then, in the afternoon, something unexpected happened. A teacher filed a formal report, and then another, and another. Within hours, the district's Human Resources Office emailed the staff. An investigation into Officer Branning's conduct has been initiated. Additional information will be collected. Marcus read the message twice, hands trembling. His mother placed a hand on his shoulder. "This is what accountability looks like, baby. Slow, painful, overdue, but real." Marcus exhaled shakily. "I didn't want to ruin anything." "You didn't ruin a thing," she said. "You simply told the truth. What people choose to do with it is their responsibility." He nodded, letting her words ground him. That evening, Marcus walked outside, the summer air warm against his skin. The neighborhood was quiet. Kids playing basketball, someone grilling nearby, a dog barking in the distance. He sat on the front steps, feeling the weight of the last 48 hours settling into something he couldn't name. Relief, maybe, or exhaustion, or the slow unwinding of fear. He wasn't sure yet. What he did know was that the truth had echoed farther than he expected. And that echo wasn't stopping. Behind him, his mother stepped onto the porch and sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. "You did good," she whispered. Marcus nodded, closing his eyes. "Yeah," he said softly. "I think maybe I did." The investigation was just beginning. The consequences weren't fully shaped yet. The wounds were still fresh. But something had broken open, finally, undeniably, and Marcus was no longer carrying it alone. The morning after the investigation announcement felt strangely quiet. Marcus woke before his alarm, sunlight filtering softly through his blinds. For once, his heart wasn't racing. It beat steadily, almost peacefully, though the edges of yesterday still clung to him like a fading bruise. He sat up slowly, stretching sore muscles. Graduation robes draped over his desk chair, the valedictorian stole folded neatly across it. His speech sat on the nightstand. He didn't need to read it again. The words were etched into him now. His phone buzzed. At first, he expected the usual notifications, reminders, news updates, maybe a message from a friend. Instead, He found dozens of new messages, some from classmates he hadn't spoken to in months, some from freshmen he barely knew, some from parents he'd never met, each one offering support. Your speech opened my eyes. My little brother went through something similar. Thank you for speaking up. Proud of you, man. You gave the rest of us courage. Marcus read them slowly, overwhelmed. It didn't erase the sting of what happened, but it softened something inside him, the sharp loneliness he had been carrying. Downstairs, the smell of pancakes drifted through the air. His mother was cooking. Again, he smiled a little. He walked into the kitchen. She turned, spatula in hand, and her face lit up. Morning, graduate. Morning. She studied him, noticing the softness in his eyes. Sleep better? Yeah, Marcus said, for the first time in days. She placed a plate in front of him. Eat. You deserve a calm morning. He sat, taking a bite, letting the warmth settle into him. After a moment, his mother spoke gently. The principal called me late last night. Marcus paused. What did he say? He apologized, she said. To me? To you. He said he's been reflecting. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Reflecting? She gave a small shrug. Some people don't understand until they're forced to, but at least he called. Marcus nodded slowly. Did he say anything about branding? She hesitated, and that hesitation said enough. Just that the investigation is moving quickly, and that Officer Branding won't be returning to the school while it's ongoing. Marcus felt a sudden, complicated twist in his stomach. Relief, but also something duller, heavier. It wasn't joy. It wasn't triumph. It was simply gravity settling into place. He didn't want to destroy anyone's life. He just wanted to stop being treated like a threat. His mother reached across the table, placing her hand over his. You didn't choose this conflict, but you handled it with courage and dignity. He looked down at the table. It doesn't feel like courage. It feels like I survived something I shouldn't have had survive at all. She squeezed his hand. Both can be true. Later that afternoon, Marcus walked to the park near his house. He needed the space, the air, the sunlight warming the back of his neck. Kids chased each other across the grass. A father taught his daughter how to ride a bike. Two teenagers practiced basketball shots on the crack court. Normal things. He found a bench under a tall oak tree and sat. Minutes later, he opened his phone again, not the messages this time, but the document of his graduation speech. He skimmed the lines, remembering how terrified he was when he spoke them. They felt different now. They didn't tremble anymore. They didn't feel too heavy. They felt earned. When he reached the final paragraph, he paused. A thought sparked. Slowly, purposefully, he tapped the share button and began typing a short caption. For every student who's ever felt unseen or mislabeled, this was for you. He attached a simple photo of his blue speech folder. Then he posted it publicly. Almost immediately, the notifications began again. But this time, they didn't overwhelm him. They grounded him, affirmed him, connected him to others who had stories of their own. Marcus leaned back on the bench, listening to the rustling trees. Maybe healing didn't have to be loud. Maybe it could be quiet, a slow unwinding, a steady reclaiming of breath. That evening, as the sun dipped low, his mother joined him on the porch steps. You know, she said softly, what you did. It's going to help students you'll never meet. Marcus looked at her. I don't know. I just told the truth. Truth is a powerful thing, she replied, especially when it's spoken at the right moment. He nodded. So what's next for you? She asked. Marcus smiled faintly. College. Physics major. Maybe engineering. Maybe something bigger. She rested her head on his shoulder. Whatever you choose, you'll do it with purpose. After a quiet beat, he added, I don't hate him, you know. Branning? She asked. Marcus nodded. I'm angry, but I don't hate him. I just want a world where people don't look at me and see danger. His mother closed her eyes for a moment. That's not hate, Marcus. That's hope. He breathed out slowly, letting her words settle. The porch lights flicked on automatically, glowing warmly against the gathering dusk. Marcus looked toward the street. kids were still laughing. Someone's music played softly in the distance. Fireflies blinked near the bushes. Life continued, not unchanged, but moving forward. He stood, stretching slightly. "You ready?" his mother asked. "For what?" "For whatever comes next." Marcus smiled. It was small but real. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think I am." He stepped back into the house, leaving the door open behind him, not closing the night out, but letting it breathe. Healing wasn't forgetting. It wasn't pretending nothing happened. It wasn't erasing pain. Healing was choosing, again and again, to move forward without letting the wound define the road ahead. And Marcus was ready to walk that road.